Hey guys, this is Super FPV here, back at it with another video. This one is all about drone frames. I'm going to get into the nitty gritty. Which one do you want as a beginner? Which one do you want as a racer or a freestyler? What thickness do you want? What kind of features do you want? All of that, okay? In my personal opinions, this is more of a rant style video, so if you want a more organized video, you might want to go somewhere else. But yeah, this is just my opinions and my thoughts on certain drone frames and what you should do what you should be thinking about when you pick your drone frames. So first thing is size. This right here is a SL5 5-inch drone frame by iFlight. This is a 3-inch drone frame by Reptile called the Cloud 149. It's a Cinewhoop. This, along with this piece that I broke off, is a 6-inch drone frame by Banggood. There's another piece that goes on from here to here that acts as a brace. A little bit later in the video, I'll go on the computer and actually go through a bunch of different drone frames on the internet. But for now, let's talk about size. Size matters no matter what anyone tells you when it comes to picking your drone frame. So the main drone frames are little tiny whoops, which I wouldn't buy an actual frame for that, just buy a pre-built one. A 2.5 inch and 3 inch, which is the Cinewhoop you saw over there. And then you have your 6-inch drone frames. And then, did I say 5? 5 inch as well, because this is 5. 5 inch is the most popular drone frame size for freestylers and beginners. When I started, I kind of went head first and got a 6-inch drone. It was hard to tune, so I highly recommend, out of personal experience, go with a 5-inch drone frame right off the bat. This is an SL5 iFlight drone frame, if I mentioned that earlier. Amazing frame. I would highly recommend this for any beginner or any pro. This is just an amazing drone frame. There's a lot of features in it that I'll talk about in a little bit that are just amazing. So more about size. The two main sizes I would consider would be 5 and 3. 5 inch for freestyle, 3 inch for racing, because I believe in maneuverability and speed when it comes to 3 inch, and flow and stability when it comes to 5 inch. For freestyle, you kind of want to like dance around, you kind of want to have a good time, and you want that extra heft, you know what I mean, to make it more stable in the air when you do, like, you know, yaw rolls and all sorts of different dance moves, pretty much. For racing, you want to be as fast as possible, which means less weight, and 3 inch will definitely give you less weight because there's less carbon on there. And maneuverability with 3 inch is also through the roof because it's smaller. It can go around corners much better. Because it is smaller, it can go through gaps much easier. You don't have the risk of actually having a much bigger surface area to go through a teeny tiny little gap. Even though it'll fit, it'll be much easier with 3 inch. I would highly recommend 3 inch for racing. It's much faster, much smaller, much more maneuverable, much more precise. Freestyle is just more stable in the air. It's more flowy. You can do much more with it. Cinematic, I would consider 6 inch or 5 inch. 5 inch and above, actually, for cinematic, in my opinion. For long range, I would consider 5 inch or 3 inch because of efficiency wise, because it's less heavier than a 6 inch or 7 inch, even though you can make a 6 inch, 7 inch, 8 inch, 9 inch long range if you want. But it's easier to make a 3 inch or 5 inch long range drone. For cinematic, I would say 3 inch or 5 inch. Just 3 and 5 are just like the best value for pretty much everything. 5 inch is just the best for everything all around, because you can race with a 5 inch. With the right 5 inch frame, you can definitely race. But for all around, I would say 5 inch winner. 3 inch for racing. You can do freestyle with 3 inch for sure. But I would highly recommend 5 inch for that extra stability. Yeah, so if this is your first build, I would highly recommend a 5 inch shape, size, whatever. because it is widely accepted. There's a lot of Reddit reviews on different 5-inch frames, a lot of YouTube videos on 5-inch frames, and just all around 5-inch is just the king. They're simpler to build in, but and pretty much everything else. Now, the difference between racing and freestyle, again, I just want to reiterate, freestyle frames are usually larger and heavier than frames focused on racing. They're simpler to build in, since the pilot isn't like heavily into trying to get rid of every single piece of weight. With racing frames, you'll have a bunch of different cutouts and stuff trying to reduce the weight, and it makes it harder to build in and everything. So quote unquote, a racing frame might be a little too challenging for a beginner. So I mean, like, all the electronics will be harder to install and all that crap. But yeah, in terms of beginner drone frames, go with 5-inch. Freestyle racing, again, I would say racing would be more leaning towards 3-inch in my opinion. You can do racing 5-inch as well. Again, in a little bit, I'll go on the computer, share screens, and then you can see exactly which ones I recommend and all that. Another point you have to actually consider is that racing frames are light and not as sturdy. So if you take a racing frame and decide to freestyle with it, and probably within your first few crashes you could actually break it, versus a more sturdy freestyle frame. Do you see the arm's thickness on this thing? It is a thick arm, versus if you take a racing frame, it might be like half of this. It might not even be half of this thing, because they want to shed off every gram they can. So if you're a beginner, definitely buy a freestyle frame. If you're a beginner freestyle, buy a freestyle frame. If you're a beginner racer, obviously you want a racer frame, but if you're a beginner pilot and trying to race, I would still suggest getting a freestyle frame to start racing in. I know that might be a contradictory opinion, because you obviously want a racing frame to start off with, but acro is not easy. You're gonna crash a lot, like I mentioned in the last video. So getting a freestyle frame to start racing in will let you crash a lot more often and still have a working drone at the end of the day. All drone frames are built with carbon fiber. As you can see, this right here is fully carbon fiber. The thickness of the arms are usually between 3 and 5 sometimes. So if I have my sources right, they're actually between 1.5 to 2 millimeters thick, or some of them can go up to 4 millimeters thick. This right here is a pretty thick boy. And then this one is really thick towards the middle. The thicker it is, the more heavy. The thicker it is, also more sturdy. I like to fly a thicker drone because I crash a lot. So there are 3 main types of frames. There's the Squish-X, which I have right here. There's a Stretch-X, which is longer on this side, so it'll be longer like that. And then there's a True X, which is an exact X. I'll put a bunch of photos on screen with like extreme pictures of what I mean. So a Stretch-X or a Squish-X is like this. This is more of like a low-key Squish-X, because it can be worse. So the Squish-X is shorter on these 2 sides versus this side. That gives more stability when you go do turns this way, all right, versus this way. And it also lets you get closer, because the camera is right here in level with the motors. It lets you get closer to things and lets you glide on the ground a little better, because wherever your camera is pretty much in line with where your propellers are, so you can get relatively closer. Now I don't have a Stretch-X, but I have a picture up on display. As you can see, the Stretch-X is longer on the right and the left side. That gives more stability going from this to this. Stretch-X is more used for racers, because they have to make quick adjustments, and that's really what it's meant for. I would say one of the Stretch-X's main abilities is to like be much more precise when it makes turns like this. And you can also pitch up and down much more precise, because it does have more control on this axis. And the way you pitch up or go faster is by pitching, right? Or going backwards, pitching, or slowing down, pitching, or braking, pitching. When you're going like that and you brake, it's pitching. So next up, we have a TrueX. I don't have a TrueX on me, but it tries to do a little bit of everything. It's pretty much perfectly an X. There's no one side that it has a preference for. It's an all-rounder. That's all I can say. It's an all-rounder. Not many people fly True X's, because most people have a preference for certain things. Like I said, a preference for either side to side, or going front back. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you got to pick your poison. You got to pick your poison. There are a bunch of other YouTubers who go in like severe detail as to which drone frame you want, but that's a crash course. My version. If you want more control from here to here, go with Squish-X. If you want more control going this way, go Stretch-X. And if you want an overall all-rounder, go with a TrueX. Now, just a brief introduction into Cinewhoop drones. This is a Cinewhoop right here. These frames are unique in that if you flip it upside down, you see that it doesn't stop just at the motor. It goes forward in, and you can actually have like a screw hole right here to place these ducts in place. These ducts are meant to protect and also to give extra downward force and stability, in my opinion. These are great, obviously, for cinematic purposes, but I'm not going to go super in-depth into Cinewhoops, because most of you guys are beginners and you guys don't really want a Cinewhoop. You want a cool freestyle drone, most likely. But these are cool as well. They're meant for cinematic purposes, as I mentioned. The primary unique thing is that most of them do not stop at the motor. They go forward a little bit more with a screw hole to mount a duct on. Now, finally, I want to talk about certain options that you get with the drone frames. This drone frame, the SL5 iFlight frame, came with these 3D printed antenna mounts, plus a little 3D printed piece. I don't know if you can see it right here. You see the 3D printed piece right there. A little circle and a little circle right there. There's a 3D printed piece that gives extra stability for the camera. It also comes with a 3D printed piece underneath here. I'm like 99% sure you're not going to be able to see this one. Right there, to hold your transmitter, XM Plus or XM transmitter in place, more stable like. Those are just little tiny things that some manufacturers like to throw in with their frames, because a lot of people end up actually wanting to 3D print those, so they were like generous enough to 3D print them and throw them in with the frame build, with the frame kit. So that's also another thing you want to look into if you want certain features. Now let's hop onto the computer, and I can actually screen share and show you what exactly I prefer, and what frames we should look for, and stuff to look for in frames. Alrighty, you guys, so we are on possibly the best website you can go to for drone parts, racedayquads.com. This is my preference website for anything drone related. So let's go on to frames right here. We'll start off with the 2 to 3 inch frames and work our way up to 5 to 6 inch frames. So let's sort by best selling just to see what we have here. So we have the Shendren Squirt. This is a Cinewhoop frame. The ducks are sold separately, but this is an amazing frame for Cinewhoop use. It comes with, usually, if you can find it on a different, I don't know about where the ducks are, but the ducks are 3D printed. They're TPU. They're pretty much indestructible, and they're amazing. They're like, the stability is amazing. This doesn't seem to come with the ducks, or like other parts. But yeah, I mean, it's an amazing Cinewhoop frame. So now we have the Tadpole 2.5 inch microframe. This is going to be a little more difficult to build in, but it's very light. The thickness is very small, and I believe it is 2 millimeters. Goodness gracious, 2 millimeters, and it's a compressed X, which is the same thing as saying Squish-X, because as you can see, it is longer on the front and back compared to the sides, which means it gives more stability going from side to side, so roll axis, right, as you can see right here. Good things about this frame, if you're interested in 2.5 inch frames, is as you can see right here, this metal area is very nice to have, as it protects the front of the quad, primarily your expensive camera that you have. And that's pretty much it. And I believe it has a brace, if I remember correctly. It does have a brace if you want to put a bigger stack on there. So now going on to one of the most popular 3-inch freestyle frames that you can get, the Armaton Gecko. This is very similar to the Tadpole. So pretty much everything that I said about the Tadpole pertains to the Gecko, but this doesn't have that little brace right here, this diagonal brace, because this is big enough to actually support it natively. This seems to come with a antenna mount at the back, if I can see it. Yep, rubber molded VTX antenna mount, so that's great. That's one of the features that I was talking about. It has that steel front, which is great for protecting your camera, and it seems to still be 2 millimeters, I believe, thickness, or no, 3 millimeters thickness. So it is much more sturdy. It's going to be heavier than the other one, but it is a whole ½ inch bigger. So you'd probably want actual 3-inch propellers on these, versus you'd probably want like 2.5-inch propellers on these, or 65 millimeter propellers. Yeah, 65 millimeter propellers are recommended. Another thing about this frame, as you can see, it does come with a little rubber pad on top to keep your battery from slipping. So that's very nice that they include that. They also include little rubber feet to protect the bottom of your drone, the bottom carbon of your drone, for any harsh landings. So that's pretty nice. The mounting for the front metal bracket is a little different than the mounting for the 2.5-inch one, but that also does add weight. So if you're looking for strictly small and lightweight, I would recommend the Tadpole. But if you're looking for a good racing, even though it says freestyle, this is much lighter than a normal 5-inch freestyle frame. I would recommend this. If you want a beginner 3-inch racing frame, like a really beginner one, as I mentioned, you're going to be crushing a lot. I would recommend this because it is quote unquote a freestyle frame because of the extra thickness and extra weight. Go ahead and buy this for a beginner freestyle frame. Even though it is $70, I would recommend it because it will last you a while, as it is sturdier than a normal racing frame. Going down, here's the frame that I showed you earlier, the Cloud 149. It is a great frame. Now this right here looks eerily similar to the 3-inch freestyle Gecko frame, but don't get it confused because it's actually more similar towards this, because this is the Tadpole 2.5 and this is the 3-inch Tadpole. This is what people would use for racing because it is only 2 millimeters thick. As you can see from the pictures, it is much thinner than the Gecko. This is 3 millimeters. This is 2 millimeters. I believe. Yep, this is also 2 millimeters. This is also compressed X. Again, on that axis, the roll axis, you have more control. It does come with the rubber pads, and it does not come with the antenna mount, I believe. Yeah, it does not come with the antenna mount. If it does, oh yeah, no, it does come with the antenna mount. That is pretty neat. Look at that. So that's another cool thing to have. Cool beans. And let me just scroll down here to see if there's any other good ones. Hollybro Copus is a great Cinewhoop frame, very similar to the Cloud 149. This one is an odd frame. I wouldn't recommend this. I've heard negative reviews about this, but you'd probably have to go to other people's recommendations for that. See, these are more difficult to actually mount a full 4S or 6S battery onto, but you'd probably run a 850 or 750 milliamp hour battery on one of these, and you'd have to bottom mount it. One thing I do want to talk about is the negativity of buying one of these, because you cannot top mount your battery. You will have to land on your battery. That's a risk that you're willing to take. Then you can go ahead and get one of these, but these are very light and very fast. This is a very fast drone because of how light it is and the parts that you'd probably put on there. As you can see, it is, where's the weight? 18.9 grams is amazing. Is amazing. The weight of this frame is incredible compared to, as you can see, this is the Gecko Freestyle frame. The frame alone is 42 grams. So imagine the difference. This will fly if you put the right parts onto it, as it is very light. But you do have to bottom mount your battery, and it's going to be much harder to build in. I would not recommend this for any beginners. But for experienced racers, go for it. Lastly, I'm just going to go down here and tell you that this is also a great Cinewhoop frame. It comes with these foam dampeners on the side, which makes it more sturdy. And if you hit something, it will be less likely for it to break, the whole thing to break. And this is the same. This is just a more expensive version of this, pretty much, in my opinion. There's also compatible with DJI. One thing to note is that there are not many DJI compatible frames out there if you would decide to go with the DJI system for 3-inch. So keep that in mind. I would recommend analog over DJI for a beginner, because lo and behold, you decide to quit. You're not gonna want to have to sell everything and get like a fraction of your money back. Now let's go on to 4-inch. I'm gonna skip because I wouldn't recommend 4-inch. If you're gonna go bigger, just go 5-inch. Let's go 5-inch frames and see what they have featured. Let's go by best selling, and there we go. This is rated most likely the #1 freestyle frame for beginners because it's very cheap, only $27. You don't get any of the fancy stuff such as a VTX mount. You'd probably have to 3D print your own, see, as this guy has right here. This is a widely used beginner freestyle 5-inch frame. It uses 4mm arms, so it's much thicker than the 3mm arms we saw on the 3-inch Gecko freestyle drone. It's much heavier, but again, like I mentioned, it's going to be more stable in the air. It's very easy to build in. Like I mentioned, the 5-inch frame is much more stable. It's much easier to build in, and this is my recommendation for beginner freestyle pilots because it's very cheap, and if you break it, I believe they sell replacement arms, and these arms aren't unidirectional. You buy one and you can put it on each of these, each of the 4 sides. So that's great. That's another feature that you should look for sometimes, because if you want to replace any arms that break off, it's going to be a pain in the butt to actually get the right arm, or specifically the left arm, or something like that. One of the other features that popped up in my head is a bracket to remove arms. Not all frames have that ability to replace single arms. Sometimes the arms are directly attached to the frame, like the Cloud 149 Cinewhoop that I showed you in person, that has attached arms. So if you break an arm, you have to replace the whole bottom part, which is a very big pain. But it is that's also an extra feature. This is a feature-packed, great, amazing beginner drone frame. Next up is the bigger boy version of the Gecko, because the Gecko is a freestyle 3-inch version. Remember that. This is the Armaton Marmot 5-inch frame. You can choose different carbon types, apparently. I didn't know that. But this is, as you can see, the same as that. All the previous things that I talked about are present. I believe this is also a 4mm. Where is it? Carbon fiber is a 4mm main plate. The top plate is 2mm. And where are the arms? Yeah, I believe these are 4mm as well. Everything I mentioned about the gecko pertain to this. This is an example of a true X. As you can see, it is similar in length, or very similar in length, from here to here to here to here. This is basically my frame that I use as a daily driver, but it comes in a true X form. This is the XL5 true X. This comes with blue. If you like blue, go for it. This has the little rubber piece right here for the VTX antenna. This also has the separatable arms, which is great again to have. The locking mechanism on this is extraordinary. It makes everything much more sturdy. As you can see, it all kind of combines in the middle and locks in the middle right here for added strength. Another feature that you kind of want to look at, again, this is the same reason why I mentioned that this is kind of a rant style video, because things kind of pop into my head while I'm making the video, is this little nub right here. The motor usually stops right around here, and this nub is here to protect the motor from impact. So when the drone goes head first and crashes, it won't be the motor that takes the first impact, it would be this little nub that takes impact first. So that protects the motor from getting bashed in and, you know, having to replace motors. Highly recommend this. I believe this is also 4mm thickness. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But this is heavier again. Like I mentioned, this is a heavier drone, more stability, but very highly recommended if you're a fan of True X. As you can see, when I scroll down, you see a bunch of DJI popping up. At 5-inch frames, you actually have a bunch of DJI options, which is amazing. It's good to have if you have a DJI system, but I don't recommend it for beginners because you're probably not going to want to spend a lot of money, just a bunch of money on a system such as DJI when you don't know if you're going to be into FPV a month from beginning it. So yeah, there are a bunch of options for DJI specific frames have different modifications to accommodate the camera and the big chungus of a box that you have to kind of slap onto the back. Now this is a T-Motor FTF or FT5 5-inch frame. This is very feature packed. It comes with a lot of things. It actually comes with a GoPro mount, which is great to have if you actually want to slap a GoPro on top. It comes with a VTX mount, and it also comes with an antenna mount, or for your like T-shaped antennas for your receiver, for your transmitter. And it also comes with, look at that. That's another feature to have. It comes with motor guard or motor arm guards. These are basically equivalent to this little nub right there, but with further protection and also skid protection to protect the bottom of the carbon. Remember how I showed you that this comes with the little rubber foam pad thing right here? This basically does that, but in a much higher quality, which is great. This is also highly recommended because it has that quad locking mechanism in the middle. Not as sturdy as I would say the iFlight one, but still highly recommended. For $50 you get a lot of cool stuff. You get a lot of features. It is orange if you're into orange. I believe this also has like the little split design. You can take this piece off and this piece off separately, so it's easier to build. I would recommend this as well. Another thing that I would like to mention now that I thought of that, and if you watch till this moment is going to be beneficial for you, is that camera compatibility. Camera sizes vary heavily. You can get big cameras, you can get this size camera, but in a much bigger housing, or this size camera in a much bigger housing, or this size camera in a really small housing, just like as you see right here. Certain frames can only fit certain sizes of cameras. That is a very important thing you have to look out for. I'll talk about that more in the camera episode, but be careful when you buy your drone frame. Your camera compatibility might be limited. This is also another True X Freestyle frame. This right here is what I was talking about as a stretch X. This is a stretch X right here. You see how it's longer on this side versus this side compared to my favorite, which is a Squish-X. Again, this gives you more control on the axis going this way. Yeah, so as you can see, this is a great example of a stretch X. So just as I mentioned before, you have greater control going from this side like this on the pitch axis. So this is a great frame for that if you want. The downside of this frame is that it has limited space up top right here if you want to fit a 5-inch. If you want to fit a GoPro plus a battery. It also, I believe it does come with an antenna mount. No, I do not. Well, let's see. Does it come with a TPU camera mount for micro cameras? But that's about it. It does not come with a VTX mount or pretty much any other 3D printed part. It just comes with a camera mount. This is the camera mount actually right here. So I don't know if I would recommend this frame. It is very cheap. But it is hard to fit a bunch of stuff up top. Going down the list here, we have another DJI compatible frame. We have another Stretch X. We have Mr.Steele's Apex frame, which is highly sought after but very expensive. Comes with a lot of features. It comes with skids and a lot. It comes with 3D printed VTX mounts. Mr.Steele is like the greatest pilot in my opinion. And you know, he knows what he's doing, and this is his frame. So if you want to spend that much money, go for it. I would recommend it. I've read reviews on it. You have to watch reviews on it because there's a lot to it. So go ahead and click off my video and go ahead and watch a review on this, because then you'll be like, oh great, why wouldn't I just buy this frame right off the bat? Well, it's because you're gonna break your frames, and I don't know if you want to spend this much money right off the bat. Going down the list, I'm going to pick off some great frames. This is another iFlight Titan. This is also Squish-X. This is the SL5V2. This is the one I have, but I don't have the little skids on there, the rubber skids on the bottom that comes with it. That's pretty nice to have, again, to protect the bottom carbon. This is another great frame because it does have protective braces on there. The Banggood 6-inch frame that I usually use had those protective braces. One downside is that they do break, and then you're gonna have to replace them, or else it kind of sets the whole thing off balance sometimes. This is kind of like a toothpick frame, but much bigger. Again, lighter, very difficult to mount battery up top because you can't. You're gonna have to bottom mount your battery here, bottom mount your battery here. This is another great frame. I recommend this frame because it does make your props go out of view, which is great. But you do end up seeing, I believe if you put your camera in here, you might actually see the side carbons, but you won't see your props in view when you're flying in your cam. This also has an added feature of having pressed in bolts, or not bolts, screws, which is great. It's just an added feature to have. Going up here, let me see if I missed anything. Again, another True X frame with the skids on the bottom. Good to have. I don't know why a 2.5-inch frame is here in the 5-inch section. Another Squish-X. This is a very odd way to have your motors mounted, but it works. It keeps your motors out of view of the camera. So this is also good. Just a very odd angle. I want to show the angle. It's just a very odd angle of arms, but it's very good. It's a good frame. I don't know why it has bad reviews, but it is a good frame. I've seen reviews on this, and I believe it is a good frame. iFlight makes really great frames, really high quality. They come with a lot of cool stuff as well, like this 3D printed area inside there, a camera for extra dampening, and the skids again on the bottom, and antenna mount for both VTX and your transmitter or radio. All right, finally, let's go on into 6 and 7-inch frames just really quickly. I'm not going to go in depth because these are all subject to opinion, really. You got another Stretch X right there. And you have a bunch of just 7-inch frames right here on the bottom, 6-inch frame here. This is the Chameleon. It's very similar to all the other Chameleon and Armaton frames that you've been seeing. A huge toothpick. I don't know why people would use this, but it's pretty neat. It's a very kind of a niche frame. And then you have your Source 1, which is, again, the 5-inch version is like one of the best frames that you can get as a beginner. All in all, I highly recommend going 5-inch. If you're going 5-inch, buy this one as a beginner, and if you're going 3-inch, buy the Gecko Freestyle frame as a beginner. So that concludes my video, my whole rant style video. I know this was a very long one, but I hope it gave you a lot of information into the world of FPV frames. That is the biggest part of the drone. I know this was a very rant style video, but if you stick to the end, I appreciate it. And you know, it gives you a lot of information. Well, not a lot of information, but it gives you a solid information and thought process as to what kind of frame you actually want to pick. So yeah, remember to subscribe and like and comment and everything. So thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.